DC, bit of excitement and joy there amid, of course, a lot of instability. Christina Bobb, attorney at Judicial Watch, former Trump attorney and former Marine judge advocate, author of the best-selling book Defiant: Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare, here to discuss the latest in the war. Also pleased to have Bill Gertz, national security correspondent at the Washington Times, author of Deceiving the Sky: Inside Communist China's Drive for Global Supremacy. And what a timely book and topic it is today. Great to see you both. So we have this, situation where it's not peace, it's not war, but it could be. Military could resume. Bill, I'm going to start with you. What do you think the best cause of action is? As President Trump leaves for China today, some think that he may not actually do anything until he gets China kind of maybe a little bit more on board with some of the ways to isolate Iran even further. Yesterday, we saw new sanctions drop against those in Hong Kong.
Yeah, the president is probably going to hold off on renewing military action, but it's clear that until his trip to Beijing is over, which ends at the end of this week, it's clear the Iranian strategy is to try and drag out the conflict and survive as much as possible. The old maxim about warfare is you have to keep fighting until the enemy gives up. And so far, the Iranians haven't given up. They've got control over the Hormuz Strait, and that's a real problem right now. I think if they do resume military strikes, we'll probably see massive attacks on Iranian infrastructure, turning the lights out and really ramping up the pressure on what's left of the Iranian regime to get them to capitulate and make a deal.
Well said. And Christina, over to you. We were watching Secretary of War Pete Hegseth today on the Hill. And the hearing concluded with questions over the long-term strategy in the war. We know that there is extreme pressure on the administration with inflation numbers coming in and gas, fertilizer, food costs are all up. So there's the political pressure. When you have a hearing like this for the Senate Appropriations Committee, they kept repeatedly asking him for clarity on what the plan is to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And he says they're ignoring the success we've had in the war. Is that a fair answer?
Well, it's a fair answer. Whether it's an acceptable answer to the Senate and to the public, is up for debate. But I think it's pretty clear that they weren't planning on this. And I support President Trump and I support their efforts. But I think it's pretty clear that this was not the plan for the war. They thought that it was going to end very quickly. They thought they were going to be in and out, and it has changed. And that's very common with war. It's not uncommon. The best laid plans only last until contact with the enemy. So that's not uncommon. But I think they're in the process of trying to figure that out. That's why the president's going to China. I think they're using everything they can with sanctions and with, economic pressures rather than military power to try to bring this to an end. But I suspect they don't know yet what their long-term plan is, and they're just trying to end it as quickly as possible.
Bill, when you look at President Trump, obviously this is his second term, and he's looking at really the reshaping of the Middle East. But when you look at his plan for China, and since you literally have written the book on this, their drive for global supremacy, it comes down to rare earth minerals. We know they want to control AI. They want to win that. President Trump is going to try and ink some business, I know, as bringing over leaders like Elon Musk and Tim Cook and others. But with China's sort of long-term plan here, what they are able to maybe do when it comes to some of these, issues, because let's face it, the concern is when it comes to Chinese spies buying up farmland here, there's a lot of concerns about the long game China's played and how it has been so duplicitous. What would be sort of a best case scenario for President Trump to walk out of here? And outside of the business, Bill, also we have Taiwan still kind of hanging out there as well and looming over.
Yeah, those are real topics that are going to be discussed this week in Beijing. The Chinese are going to press President Trump on tariffs and trade. Basically, the Chinese economy is hurting, but yet the Chinese Communist Party has total control over that economy. But they want some relief from tariffs, and they're using their control over rare earth minerals, which are needed for everything from warplanes to automobiles. The U.S. side wants
Bye.